He again is probably the most athletic player on this team. And
why you would use that, especially when one call.
Just a horrible situation for them.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Hello and welcome to another episode of TakeaSide presented by Sided Debates. We've got a great show for you today, but before we get started, be sure to get onto Sided.co or the Sided Debates app to post topics, vote, comment, and engage with other users on the site to climb up that leaderboard for a chance at winning a $25 Amazon gift card. The more interaction your debate can get, the more points you earn, inching you closer to that top prize. It's a very exciting time of year for fans of all sports, so be sure to hop on and create some debates for your favorite teams. Switching into our first topic of the day, the Kansas Jayhawks men's basketball team won the national championship on April 4th, giving Kansas its first championship since 2008, and Bill Self puts himself in an exclusive group of coaches with 2 or more championships. Most Kansas fans agree that this win cements Bill Self as the best coach in college hoops that's still active. But I'm joined by Sam Lance and Chad Cushing to discuss. Sam, do you think Bill Self is currently the best coach in college hoops?
Well, I'm actually going to go against Bill Self and pick somebody who may be a little bit outside the box. You know, if you don't go with Self, you may think somebody like Jay Wright or John Calipari, but no, I'm going with Eric Musselman of Arkansas. I mean, he has simply changed their program. He has a ton of experience as an NBA head coach, assistant at Arizona State and LSU, and then he had the head coaching job at Nevada before coming to Arkansas. And at Arkansas, he has a solid resume. He's taken them to the Elite Eight the last 2 seasons. Since 2000, Arkansas hasn't been to the Elite Eight, but Musselman took them there. So I'm going to take Eric Musselman.
Sam, I'm liking what you're saying. I understand the hype right now. Eric Musselman, back-to-back seasons where Arkansas has put out fantastic efforts and it made it to the Elite Eight, and especially this year going head-to-head with Gonzaga. Fantastic stuff. But when you're talking about the best of the best, the upper echelon in college basketball, there's one name that comes to mind, and it's Bill Self. And I think that even before winning this year's championship, Bill Self already had that resume. We're talking about a 6-time Big 12 Coach of the Year, a 2-time AP Coach of the Year, a Naismith Coach of the Year, a 20-time conference champion with 16 at KU, a 10-time conference tournament champion with 9 at KU. He's got 11 Sweet 16s, 10 Elite Eights, 4 Final Fours, 2 championships. I mean, this is a laundry list of accomplishments for a coach that has made Kansas one of the, or if not the, most premier program of the 2000s and 2010 era. I mean, we're talking, it's the top to the very bottom, and I know that Eric Musselman may have a good future ahead of him, but right now it's Bill Self.
Yeah, you know, I'll agree with you. Bill Self has a better resume than Eric Musselman right now. But we are entering a new era of college basketball with the transfer portal, with NIL, and Eric Musselman has shown already that he can excel in this type of environment. I remember seeing videos of him with Nick Smith, one of the top recruits coming into this class who's going to change this Arkansas program. He's a great player. He was, doing this video for recruiting with him, dunking on this 8.5-foot hoop because he's not very tall. He's like 5'7". And that ended up getting a bunch of engagement. I've seen on Twitter that he actually has the most Twitter impressions of any coach. And believe it or not, that helps with recruiting. They have the number 2 class for this next season coming in. Nick Smith, we already talked about him. They also have Jordan Walsh, who is a great player. He's number 18 in the class. So Musselman has proved that he can recruit, and he's also been going out and getting people in the transfer portal. He got Jalen Graham from Arizona State, and he got the Mitchell twins from Nevada. Arkansas is going to be deep and talented next year. I would pick them as my national champion. If right now the season started today, I would pick Arkansas as the national champion, especially if they return Jalen Williams. Musselman, he's built the program. Now it's his time to go out, execute in the NCAA tournament, and get one of those titles. And I think if he does get a title, he could be considered the best coach in college basketball. And I think when it's all said and done, Eric Musselman could have 2, maybe even 3 titles at Arkansas. He's just completely changed the culture there.
Okay, that's a whole, we're talking coach and recruiter. Those are 2 completely different things. And if I'm picking the best coach the guy who's going to pull out the clipboard at a timeout and draw up the best play to get me some points to win a game. I mean, first off, I'm taking Hoosiers picket fence. Second, I'm taking Bill Self. And we're talking about a guy, Bill Self, especially this year. You're saying Arkansas can win future championships. KU just won, and KU's team this year only had 2 top 100 recruits on the whole entire roster.
Okay, they have 4 NBA talent players, though. Maybe 5.
Even so, that's a testament to Bill Self's ability to develop talent. We're talking about recent All-Americans, too. Ochai Agbaji, Frank Mason, Devontae Graham. All of these guys have either transferred, came from different places, and came to KU, and Bill Self has made them All-Americans in their 4th season. You always point out, KU always has that senior on the team, the older guys are able to run their offense and be leaders on the team that turn into great college basketball players. And that is where I see Bill Self as a superior coach, because he's taking talent that he wants to have on his team. He's not picking guys that are 5 stars all around. He's not having the #1 recruiting class in the country. He's bringing guys that play Bill Self basketball, and he's winning a lot of games with them.
Well, we can agree to disagree with this one. Just one little more fun fact. Eric Musselman, the past 2 seasons, he actually does have a better winning percentage at home than Bill Self, and Kansas does have the best home court advantage in college basketball. So just some more food for thought, but that will wrap it up, and we'll send it to a quick break.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back. The NBA regular season has wrapped up, with play-in games scheduled to begin on Tuesday. The 7 and 8 seeds from both conferences are up for grabs. The Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat have both clinched the #1 seeds, but can anyone dethrone them on the way to the finals? I am joined by Jack McGar and Carson Shea to debate which play-in teams they feel can make a run deep into these NBA playoffs. Carson, let's start with you.
All right, this might be a hot take, but from the West, I'm going to start with the San Antonio Spurs. I know that they're the 10 seed going into the play-in, but nobody's talking about them. They're so underrated. DeJounte Murray is one of my favorite young players in the league, and I want to see what he can do in the playoffs. I think that they can take it. I think they can make the playoffs.
They may have DeJounte Murray, but they don't have anyone else. Their next best player is Keldon Johnson, who's a second-year player. I mean, they really don't have any depth on that team besides a lot of young guys that are still developing and that still haven't proven anything yet. And especially, they're in the play-in game right now. They don't have really a shot to prove themselves in the playoffs after they lose their first play-in game coming Tuesday or Wednesday. But from the West, I have the Wolves, the 7th seed in the West. Cat is that dude, and he's proven that all year long. He's averaging 25 and almost 10 rebounds, a game. He's one of the best offensive centers in the league. Their defense has actually improved a lot this year. They've got Patrick Beverly, Jarrett Culver, Vanderbilt, McLaughlin. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that can play defense and can play it well. I mean, their offense can go against anybody in the league, but their defense has really improved. And I think that's really why the Wolves are going to make a splash after the play-in tournament.
All right, well, let's say if it comes down to it, if let's say the Timberwolves lose and the Spurs win, they play each other to get that final spot. I really think that there's a chance that the Spurs can take them. You never know what's going to happen. I agree that I think he's the 3rd best center in the league, but I have no doubt that the Spurs can take him. But on the Eastern side, I don't know. I got to go with the Cavs. I'm switching up. I'm going with the Cavs who are the 7th seed. I love Darius Garland. I love Evan Mobley, and I think that they have a good chance.
I think the Cavs are really special. I think they're really talented this year, but injuries have plagued them all year long. Jarrett Allen's not going to play in this play-in game, especially against the Nets, who have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond. I mean, you can list everyone on that team.
I don't care about their roster. All right? Look at what happened to the Lakers. Everyone thought that they were going to do well. They didn't make it.
Yeah, but
I think the same's going to happen to the Nets.
The Lakers were all old and brittle anyways. The Cavaliers are all very young and have a lot of injuries. I mean, I think they have too many injuries to withstand this play-in tournament. I think they'll lose to the Nets, and I think they'll lose to the Atlanta Hawks, who's my pick after they lose to the Nets. I think the Hawks really have what it takes to make a real splash in this playoffs, especially if they were to play the Heat in the first round, which they would if they won both games. they would play the Heat. And I think they're very similar. I think their three-point shooting is what makes each team elite. And I think the Heat's defense might be a little bit better, but the Hawks defense is also there. I mean, Trae Young has been special all year. I think he's a first-team All-NBA candidate this year, in my opinion. I mean, he's averaging 28, 10 assists a game. With John Collins injured right now, that is a major concern I have. But with Clint Capella defending the rim, I think the Hawks have what it takes to really compete with the Heat in the first round.
I mean, you're talking about injuries for the Cavs. The Cavs have two of their best players, and so do the Hawks. So, like, that kind of – I agree that Trae Young's insane. I'd say Trae Young's better than anybody in the Hawks. But I would take Evan Mobley and Darius Garland because I just want to see what they can do in the playoffs. I think that if they were to play the Heat or the Celtics, they could make a run for it. I think they could win in 7.
Really? Okay.
I do.
I think the Hawks are really going to make a splash because, again, they play the Heat, and I think their teams are so similar. And I think the Hawks have what it takes, especially from last season when Trae played in the playoffs and beat, especially that Knicks series that everyone saw in Madison Square Garden. I think he really embraces the playoff vibes. I think he likes being the villain. And I think that's what makes the Hawks different from the Cavs because now the Hawks have that playoff mentality. They have that playoff experience that they had from last year, even with the young guys that they have on the team. The Hawks have that playoff experience. The Cavs just don't. And again, with all the injuries that they have too, I don't see the Hawks. I don't see the Cavs making it out of the play-in tournament.
Right, but the Hawks last year were really good. They were a top 5 seed going into the playoffs, but something changed for them this year, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't think that they have the same firepower that they did last year, but I think the Cavs, the city of Cleveland, is waiting to go back to the playoffs. I think that the city behind them, I think the crowd, they're hyping them up. I really think that the city of Cleveland wants them to go far. Darius Garland, you can tell he wants this. When they had the All-Star game in Cleveland, the fans were riled up. I think that Darius Garland can take this.
Again, I think just when you're missing an all-star center in Jared Allen, I think that's really the key X factor right now because with Jared Allen out, that's their big guy at the rim. That's who's playing defense and guarding every shot that comes at the rim. With Jared Allen out, I just don't see it happening.
All right, well, I guess we're going to see what's happened. This is one of my favorite times of year. I love the NBA. I love playoff. It's just a great vibe.
Yep.
So we're going to cut it back to Max after a break.
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
Welcome back. The MLB season finally kicked off this past weekend. After an offseason filled with turmoil, the league has finally started up with just a minor delay to the start of the regular season. We got our first bit of action and got to see these teams play together for the first time this year. And for this debate, we are taking Blake Sevenbergen and Jackson Reed's instant reactions to see which of these teams they like for a push for the pennant. Blake, let's start with you.
For the AL this year, I said it last year, and I'm saying it again this year. Give me a large dose of the Chicago White Sox to make the World Series, and I'm going to start with pitching. Lucas Giolito is an elite pitcher in the MLB. Lance Lynn is kind of old, and he's a little hurt every once in a while, but he's a good arm to have on that roster. Dylan Cease, I think, could make a push to be one of the best pitchers in the league this year. He had a 5-inning start in his first start this season, 8 strikeouts, played really well. Michael Kopech is good. Dallas Keuchel is aging as well, kind of like Lance Lynn, but he's a guy that can get you outs and play well. Their bullpen is great. Liam Hendricks, Joe Kelly was an offseason addition who might not be the best pitcher in the world, but he's fiery, he's fun, he brings good emotion to the team. And then you add in bats like Luis Robert, Yasmani Grandal, Tim Anderson. I think the White Sox have the roster to make a push this year in the AL Central that isn't as good as it normally is.
The AL Central is probably the worst division in baseball. I mean, the Lord knows what's going on with the AL Central. But
true.
I'm just saying, from a roster standpoint, I agree with you. The White Sox definitely have a fantastic roster, but if we're going to make the roster argument, you have to also consider in the Toronto Blue Jays. This lineup, I'm just saying, George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Teoscar Hernandez, probably the most underrated player in baseball. There, I said it. Lourdes Gurriel, Matt Chapman, who they got in the offseason. Raimel Tapia is one of the more versatile outfielders in the MLB. And then they obviously have Danny Jansen behind the dish. I mean, this Blue Jays team is certainly deep enough, and then when you go to their their rotation first, Barrios, Gossman, Ryu for your first 3, it's got to be up there with the best in baseball. Throw in their bullpen, they have Jordan Rodomo to close it out, David Phelps. I mean, they have Trevor Richards as well. This is a team that certainly has the roster, and I understand they play in a much tougher division than the White Sox do, but if the Blue Jays can get past their division, I don't see any reason why the Blue Jays can't get the 1 seed in the AL and I'm not saying walk to the World Series because the American League is definitely, obviously, there's teams that are looming here. But I'm telling you, I think the Toronto Blue Jays are more qualified to make the World Series out of any team in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the rotation for the Blue Jays is great, and it's going to challenge any team in baseball. My problem with the Blue Jays is yes, they are loaded. They have a great roster. But that division that they're playing in is also loaded. The AL East is really good. You got Wander Franco from the Rays. You've got the entire Yankees team that is obviously the Yankees. The Red Sox are always going to be average to good. Like, I don't know if they can win enough games to be the 1 seed in the AL to get a path that they like to the World Series. That's why I didn't like the Blue Jays there. That's why I think the White Sox have a really good chance because they're playing in not a great division. So they're going to win games and put themselves in a position to be in a position late in the season. And I really like where they could stand with that. What are you thinking NL-wise, though?
Well, we have to throw an honorable mention to the Los Angeles Dodgers because, I mean, look at the roster.
Yeah, they're the Dodgers.
But let's not be the pander guys here. Let's throw in some different opinions. I'm gonna go with the New York Mets. And you know what? People are gonna be like, oh, the Mets, what? Just hang with me here. Once Jacob deGrom comes back, your pitching rotation starts with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. It doesn't get much better than that. And then you have Chris Bassett, Carlos Carrasco, Taijuan Walker, who had a great year last year. I'm not really sure why people don't talk about Taijuan Walker. He was fantastic. Seth Lugo, Edwin Diaz in the bullpen. And this team, if they can get their bats going, I mean, I love Brandon Nimmo's probably the most stereotypical leadoff hitter of all time. He's fantastic. Francisco Lindor, Robinson Cano's aging, but like, what is age in baseball? I mean, Pete Alonso, who just hits 30 home runs like it's his job. Eduardo Escobar, who they got in the offseason, I love him too. Dominic Smith, Mark Canha, Jeff McNeil. This team has a fantastic outfield as well, just of names you might not have heard of, but that doesn't really matter. And their division is also hard. But I'm telling you right now, if the Mets can get past their division, they are certainly a team to watch out for because in the playoffs, if you can roll out Walker, DeGrom, and Scherzer in a best-of-5 series and even a best-of-7 series, you can use those pitchers. The Mets are going to be one of the tougher teams to beat.
The problem is every year it's always the Mets. The Mets are always supposed to be good. They're supposed to have a good team. They've had DeGrom for multiple years now, and they still haven't been that good. Obviously, having Scherzer helps and Carrasco and Chris Bassett because that rounds out their rotation, and DeGrom isn't the only guy. But before this year's team, they couldn't score runs for DeGrom to do anything good anyway. So I'm a little worried about the Mets getting to the playoffs and then performing offensively. Obviously, their pitching is great. But mine, I'm going to go near and dear to my heart because they won the World Series last year and they were a fun team to watch. Give me the Atlanta Braves one more time. They got better. They won the World Series and their roster still got better. They still have Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson throwing on the mound for them, Kenley Jansen out of the pen, Dansby Swanson playing short. Obviously, Freddie Freeman's gone, but when you get a first baseman like Matt Olson, it doesn't really matter that Freddie left. Matt Olson is just as good.
Freddie Freeman?
Yes, absolutely. Matt Olson is just as good as Freddie Freeman. And they're going to get Acuna back healthy.
Yep.
And they won the World Series without him last year. So if the Braves stay healthy and they get Acuna back at the right time, this team is dangerous again. I'm not saying that they're going to win the whole thing, but I think absolutely they can get there with the team they have, and they proved to us that they could do it last year.
Before we go, can we agree that the team that wins the NL East is the best fit to go to the World Series?
Probably.
Okay.
It's either them or the Dodgers. I think it's whoever comes out of the NL East
right.
or the Dodgers. And I
Okay.
think the Phillies can be really good this year too. And then the AL is just a toss-up because there's so many good teams in the AL.
Right.
We're obviously going to have to see what happens this baseball season. I'm very excited to see what happens.
So am I.
As are you. And with that, that is all we have. Now let's send it back to Max.
Thank you so much for tuning in for today's show. Before we go, as I said, be sure to create your own Sided account to be able to post debates of your own, as well as comment and vote on others' debates. Along with that, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TakeaSideKU for weekly live streams and clips from the show, where we'll be having different Sided content for you weekly. That's all the time we have for today. For all of us here at Take a Side, we'll see you next week.